So let me invite Nadine. Nadine, please, are you ready for presentation? Nadine Sulkowski, please, time is yours.
Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to everybody, also from my side. It's a pleasure to have been invited to speak at the event today. And it's always a pleasure to be working with Universitas Islam Indonesia, because I remember that during my first visit to Indonesia in March 2015, one of my first stops was at UII, and I'm amazed how far our collaboration has come, and that it has provided such a fruitful ground for creating what we can see as an emerging entrepreneurial ecosystem. And thank you very much to Volker as well for his very insightful presentation on what is taking place in Bielefeld at FHM, and how FHM are supporting entrepreneurs in Germany. And what I would like to do now is to start presenting or a part of the solution, because our approach towards entrepreneurial capacity building within the University of Gloucestershire, and also in Indonesia through the GITA project, is based on what we call a triangular approach. And we will be hearing about the different aspects of the triangular approach in the next couple of presentations as well. And what I would like to do this morning is to talk to you about entrepreneurial learning outcomes. So that is one part of the triangle. It is the curriculum development aspect of the triangle. So what I will do, I will try and share my presentations. Please just bear with me for a moment whilst I do that. Okay, so I hope that you can all see this. So, as I said, I will be talking to you about embedding entrepreneurship education into university curricula, because one thing that I believe we all need to understand is that building entrepreneurial capacity needs to start with the right education. And we will need to understand as well how current approaches towards education may have to change in order to facilitate this change. So first of all, I would like to talk to you about entrepreneurship education and why it is necessary. Then I would like to talk to you a little bit about the triangular approach and how it relates to what we would like to embed in curricula, and also how this relates to the other parts of the triangle, which relate more to business incubation, to creating that infrastructure that students can become entrepreneurs and don't just have the knowledge, but also the infrastructure somewhere within their close proximity to be entrepreneurial, to get the advice. So all the things that Volker has talked about a moment ago. And we will then move on to talking about how to prepare students for the world of work. And John's and Alex's presentation will also talk about that element. Now, first of all, why do we need to be concerned with entrepreneurial capacity building? And why do we need to be concerned with entrepreneurial capacity building, particularly in Indonesia? Now, as you can see here on this slide, the human capital index in Indonesia is relatively, human capital score in Indonesia is relatively low compared to other countries. If we look at the US, we have a human capital score of 100%, and the human capital score is measured by the level of employment, measured by the hiring of employees, the percentage of wages compared to overall expenditure by an organization, by the level of human development, training and development, and also by retention. So you see in the US, the human capital score is 100%. In Malaysia, it's relatively high in terms of percentage as well. So it's 63, as we see here. In Indonesia, it is only 16. And I think these figures show really what has inspired the GITA project, and also shows why Indonesia is so keen on working with universities and other stakeholders to create that entrepreneurial ecosystem that allows students to be entrepreneurial. And that requires a whole sea change across the entire higher education sector, but also across the public sector in making sure that policies are aligned with the aspirations of universities, and also with inspiring entrepreneurs. And that's really what the GITA project is about. Now, I'm not going to talk in too much detail about this slide here, because John will be talking about HE Innovate later on this during the session. Embedding entrepreneurial learning outcomes into university curricula, or changing curricula so that students are being taught how, or being nurtured as inspiring entrepreneurs, needs to start with an entrepreneurial institution, with an entrepreneurial university, where senior management is committed to creating that infrastructure, and also to empowering staff to embed entrepreneurship and education into their curricula and into their modules. It also requires, as I said, an infrastructure, so there need to be spaces where students can collaborate, where they can work on inventions. They need to have access to the right technological equipment, and also need to learn how to work with technology in the right way to support their collaboration with other entrepreneurs, and also to support the startup of their invention. So basically, curriculum development needs to take place within a wider entrepreneurial context, and I look forward to John's presentation later, to where he will introduce the HE Innovate approach in more detail. But for now, let's move on to curriculum development. And I think what we need to do is we really need to understand what an entrepreneur is to start with, because otherwise it would be difficult to create entrepreneurial learning outcomes or education around that concept. And essentially, we are looking here at somebody who identifies or creates and acts on opportunities, for example, by starting a new business venture or social enterprise. So, and I think really, let's maybe dissect this a little bit, because an entrepreneur is somebody with a very distinctive skill set, and entrepreneurship is something that requires a very distinctive skill set. And I think the key words here are identifying and creating and acting on opportunities. So we need to have somebody who, first of all, can identify an opportunity, and that may be a market trend, it may be an invention, it may be something that's never been thought about before. Then somebody who is able to create a solution, who really understands the need of consumers, who really is able to provide a solution to a problem that they can see somewhere in the market or elsewhere. And somebody who is then able to act on this opportunity, somebody who is minded to take that risk, to take that step to really act on this opportunity and create a new enterprise. And as we've just heard from Volker, that requires a whole range of skills. Somebody needs to be well-versed in legislation, in financial management, needs to understand people management, and that really is the role of entrepreneurial educators. We need to have individuals who are able to support those students. So let's see how we do this. Now, first of all, we need to understand what an entrepreneurial character or an entrepreneurial mindset means. And I've already talked about the fact that we need to have somebody who is creative, who is innovative, somebody who is a risk taker, somebody who can create opportunities, not just for themselves, but also for others. So those who can actually make a positive impact within the labor market. We need to have somebody who is a good communicator, who is a confident thinker, and somebody who can also be an agent of change within their industries, within their sectors, who can promote the expansion of innovative practices, who can promote sustainability and resilience within their sectors, and really curriculum development in that regard starts with understanding that mindset that we want to create. Now, at the University of Gloucestershire, all our curricula, all our programs are being designed around a graduate profile that we are trying to create. And we are basing our graduate profiles on what we call the 5 E's. So we want to create students who are engaged, so they are engaged with current practice, with current debates, be those academic or professional. We want students who are engaged with their communities, their business communities, their local communities. We want students who are inquiring, who are empathetic, who are enterprising, so those who are able to act on new opportunities. And we want students who are empowered. So students who feel confident that they can make that leap. And of course, you can't nurture a mindset like this without having the right staff. So at the University of Gloucestershire, in the business school, we are very minded to employ members of staff who are entrepreneurial themselves. So many of our staff come from industry, they run their own enterprises. Our recently appointed subject group leader in business is a lady who runs her own business. So basically what we want is to have an academic community, a campus environment that enables students to acquire that mindset, that inspires them to acquire that mindset. And we work very closely with industry, with local businesses to inject that entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurial skills, and also entrepreneurial assignments, little projects into the curriculum as we develop those future graduates and as we inspire them to adopt an entrepreneurial mindset. So how do we do this? Now, first of all, what we need to understand is we require a particular pedagogy, and that pedagogy needs to be based around the difference between what we call effectual versus causation logic. And I'm going to talk about this in a moment. We need to look at a curriculum that is focused on problem solving, and also that introduces students to challenging work environments. And I think what is very important to understand here is that with work environments and entrepreneurial education, we don't just mean entrepreneurship education within a business school. We actually are looking at different sectors, because students can be entrepreneurial within non-business subjects such as architecture and pharmacy, where they can provide enterprising solution around new pharmaceutical discoveries. And I think the current context of this moment in time is probably providing numerous examples for the latter. So basically what we want is we want students to develop capability for strategic ambidexterity. So and also develop capability for creating sustainable business models. So we want students who are able to, first of all, draw upon a range of skills, a range of aptitudes in order to achieve what an entrepreneur needs to achieve. i.e. create opportunities and then also act on them. And also we want to create graduates who can create sustainable business models. So basically who are not set up to fail, because many startups, because they are not supported appropriately, are setting themselves up to fail. So we want to make sure that students do create sustainable business models, and also that those who are educated and supported through the growth hubs that are developing in Indonesia, that they create sustainable business models. And I think this goes even further, and it goes back to what I've just said about the 5 E's that we want to nurture within students. We want students who are empathetic and who are engaged with their community. Sustainable business models are not just about sustaining the business themselves. It's also about understanding the impact that the business has on the community and socioeconomic well-being and socioeconomic growth. Okay, so basically, let's talk a little bit about the difference between causation logic and effectual logic. And I hope that this explains why we really do need to have a bit of a sea change within our views of education in this regard, because many business school curricula are based on causation logic. They are designed to nurture, to develop future managers. So basically those who are being employed by companies or by the public sectors, who are working towards goals, who are working towards expected returns, who devise their strategies being in view of competition and being competitiveness, and who are working on the basis of sort of avoiding risks and avoiding the need to draw upon contingencies. So it's very much driven by the notion that managers, leaders, organizations are responding to changes within the business environment. So basically you see an economic downturn, you're trying to defend against that. You see a new market opportunity, you try and follow that market opportunity, and you try to follow that market opportunity faster than competitors. Now, when you're looking at effectual logic, which is really the logic that is required within an entrepreneurial mindset, it is different. The drives comes very much from within. So basically, entrepreneurs are seeing opportunities based on what they are passionate about, what they feel they can achieve with the means that they have. And entrepreneurs very often venture into business because of their own of the view that they have of themselves, their sense of self. And it's very different compared to causation logic, which is very much driven by the organizational context and by the goal orientation. And also what we need to understand is that when we're looking at effectual logic, we are looking at a logic which is much more open towards risk and much more open towards leveraging opportunities that come from a possibly very volatile environment. So basically, those who use effectual logic are very agile in their thinking. They're very quick to adapt their business, and they're very adept at creating opportunities for business as well. So they're very inventive. And really what we need to do is to look at curricula and find a way of embedding activities, embedding learning opportunities that nurture that effectual logic side within students. So basically, what we want is that students leave their programs with what we call strategic ambidexterity, so that they're able to pursue more than just one strategic objective, that they can exploit innovation, that they can think about sustainability, but also that they can develop themselves as individuals, because entrepreneurs very often start off into the world of business because they are passionate about an idea, because they are passionate about inventions, but they may not necessarily have all the business skills they need. So that element of personal development is incredibly important to ensure that they have the right set of skills, but also that they can grow their business, and that they can take that a step from perhaps a national business towards an international business. So what we have done, we have developed a model around what we call the triangular approach, and that triangular approach includes student entrepreneurial capacity building, university enterprise collaboration, and enterprise creation. And what we see here is that really those three elements are necessary in order to nurture that entrepreneurial mindset. So we need to have a junction between intersection between student entrepreneurial capacity building and enterprise creation. So basically business incubation that Alex is going to talk about later, in order to create that entrepreneurial skill and mindset. We do need to have university enterprise collaboration, an intersection between university enterprise collaboration and curriculum development, in order to identify what are the right skills for enterprises in the first place. And we need to have obviously an intersection between university enterprise collaboration and our business incubation activities, in order to make sure that we understand what the right skills for startups are, and also that we deliver, that we create that infrastructure, that we enable students to use spaces, to use mentors, to use to draw upon examples of successful entrepreneurship and startup activity in order to follow in their footsteps, and also to embark onto the right path. So this is basically our concept, and I think this figure here shows quite nicely why we really need to have those three elements of student entrepreneurial capacity building within their academic programs, within their curricula, why we need to have facilities for enterprise creation, but also why we need to have that collaboration between university and enterprise. And actually what we will see later on is that this needs to be expanded further, and also include the public sector. Now let me talk a little bit about how we are actually approaching the embedding of entrepreneurial learning outcomes. And basically what we have found is that really we need to have three areas of focus. One area that focuses on helping students to develop skills that enable them to take the initiative, one that is focusing on the use of resources, and one that is focusing on the creation of ideas and opportunities. And this is essentially what we have done. So if we're looking at the first area, which is taking the initiative, we have identified a set of competences that students have to acquire in order to become successful entrepreneurs. And within taking the initiative, this includes planning and management, coping with ambiguity, uncertainty and risk. It includes working with others, and it also includes learning with experience, through experience. So basically the personal development element. And what we've tried to do is to translate those specific competencies into description of learning outcomes. So if you're looking at the first one, you see here in taking the initiatives, which is taking the initiative, which is linked to leadership. The learning outcome description would be to act and work independently to achieve goals, stick to intentions and carry out planned tasks, initiate processes that create create value. So basically, this is what we want students to do in relation to this, or to be able to do in relation to this specific competence. And I'm not going to go through each of those now, because it would take too much time, but you can see the process that we have that we have undergone in order to come up with those learning, entrepreneurial learning outcomes. Because if I move on to the next one, we obviously have done the same for the resources area, which is built around self-awareness and self-efficacy. So basically the ability to draw upon one's own resources, motivations and perseverance, mobilizing resources, so basically being able to get and manage the material and the resources that are needed in order to be entrepreneurial and to pursue an entrepreneurial venture, financial and economic literacy, and also mobilizing others, so basically being able to inspire others to follow the entrepreneurial venture. So what we've tried to do is to identify, first of all, specific competences, and then translate this into a set of learning outcomes. And these learning outcome descriptions are really quite fundamental for embedding entrepreneurial capacity building into university curricula in a systematical manner, and in a manner that is scalable. Because what we have created with those learning outcomes is a set of curriculum guidelines, a set of skills that each program in theory can take and superimpose, so to speak, on their existing curricula. And it works across all different disciplines. So basically what we could do is we could give this a set of learning outcome descriptions to somebody who is leading a program in pharmacy or in architecture or in agricultural management. And we could say to them, okay, have a look at your curricula, have a look at your individual subjects, have a look at the semesters, and think about where you can embed those learning outcomes in order to make sure that students do not just acquire subject expertise, but that they are also nurtured as entrepreneurs. And this will then include not just learning opportunities, not just teaching in the classroom, it will also spill over into the assessments, into the coursework that students are involved in, and it will also spill into extracurricular activities. So basically the additional seminars that students might engage in, guest speakers who might come, and as I said, the facilities and the infrastructure at the university that students might be using during their course. So this is our solution, so to speak, for first of all creating entrepreneurial learning outcomes, and also for embedding those into university curricula. And of course, what goes with that is a set of employability skills as well. So we want to make sure that students have team working and collaboration skills, that they are analytical, that they have problem-solving skills, that they are innovative and entrepreneurial, that they have leadership and organizational skills, that they have intercultural skills, which is very important in a globalized world, and that they have communication and numerical skills. And what you can see here is that we have mapped those employability skills against the 5 E's, the 5 graduate attributes that at the University of Gloucestershire we would like to create. And I think what you're beginning to see really that there is a system of mapping learning opportunities against those skills, those aptitudes, those attributes that we are trying to create. Okay, so the triangular approach model that I've introduced earlier has just become a little bit more complex, because obviously what we want to make sure is that we have got a systematic model to draw upon causation and effectual logic education that I have explained earlier, but also that we are mindful of the fact that some students will be opportunity-based entrepreneurs. So those who identify a market opportunity and are passionate about going into business and who have that drive from within. However, other entrepreneurs will be necessity-based entrepreneurs. So basically they will become entrepreneurs because there simply aren't enough employment opportunities. And what is important is that we differentiate between those two types and that we are providing support to both of those types of entrepreneurs within curricula, but also within the infrastructures that we are creating within universities to support entrepreneurs, because not all entrepreneurs or startup entrepreneurs will be able to afford university education. Some may need support, training support, mentorship, but they may not be able to afford to study for 3 or 4 years in order to obtain that qualification, that degree that gives them the skills that they need. For which reason, community-based initiatives to support entrepreneurship are also important. And I think what is really going to be increasingly important in the future is that universities understand their role in providing those facilities to communities and to giving that one-stop shop opportunity for those who are in less privileged situations. So here we've got a slightly more elaborate version of what it means to create an entrepreneurial mindset. But regardless of whether we are looking at the triangular approach or whether we are looking at alternative models, looking at the entrepreneurial mindset, the notions of working together, accelerating learning and leading change are areas which are emphasized in all models concerning building enterprising students. Now, very briefly, and this is going to sort of set the scene, I think, so to speak, for what John is going to talk about later when he talks about creating entrepreneurial universities. But really, in order to create entrepreneurial curricula, we need to understand who the key actors are and also need to make sure that those key actors are involved. So we need to have the involvement of senior management, of faculty and schools. We need to have growth hubs and incubators involved. We need program managers and lecturers and module leaders included in this whole ecosystem that we're trying to create within universities, because without the commitment and without the coordinated effort of all of those key actors, the system isn't going to work. And of course, what we want is to create student entrepreneurs. And I have heard earlier when Arif has made his introduction that quite a few student entrepreneurs have joined us today as well, which is lovely. And I was particularly inspired to see so many student entrepreneurs exhibiting during our recent visits, well, not that recent, it was last year, to the different growth hubs across Indonesia. And the sheer diversity of startup ventures which are emerging in Indonesia. And it's really, really exciting. And I have to say, one of the most inspiring conversations that I have had was when I was talking to aspiring entrepreneurs at one of our GITA growth hubs, and they said to me, "Oh, we wish that we had, you know, that you would have started this project earlier, that those facilities like the growth hubs and the incubators would have existed sooner, and that the approaches towards education would have changed sooner, because so many of our friends and fellow students would have liked to draw upon this support. So I think what we can see already is that the solutions that we are trying to embed are making a very, very positive impact, which is fantastic. And as I said earlier, what is important is that we're thinking about the scalability of the GITA approach, and the scalability of entrepreneurial learning outcomes. And we have started conversations with the ministry in order to find solutions for creating an entrepreneurial ecosystem beyond the individual universities and beyond the GITA network. And the national association that we are currently creating, that Arif has mentioned earlier, is going to be one of the most fundamental vehicles for us being able to roll out those solutions across Indonesia. And that includes the creation of incubators, but it also includes the embedding of entrepreneurial learning outcomes into curricula. And we are hoping to work with the ministry in the future to have an understanding of what could be a common standard across different programs. So essentially what we're trying to do is to create those stepping stones for students, where we're giving them an entrepreneurial mindset and employability skills, but also the ability to practice on campus, to become pioneering new business opportunities, and to work in partnership with mentors, and to eventually launch their startups, hopefully successfully, and with the ongoing support of the growth hubs. So thank you very much. That was all from me, and I hope this has given you an insight into how we are developing entrepreneurial capacity through curriculum development. So thank you very much.